Hello everyone, welcome to my channel.
I can still hear my father's voice echoing through that night, sharp, furious, shaking the walls. "Listen to me or get out!" he shouted at my grandpa. "The man who built this house, this family, this life." Mom didn't move. She just sat there, eyes fixed on the floor, trapped between two men she claimed to love. Grandpa didn't argue. He only looked at her once, then at me, quiet, calm, before walking out into the cold night without a word. The door closed, and something in me broke with it. For years, I thought family meant loyalty. That night, I learned silence could be its own kind of betrayal. 3 days later, my phone lit up 101 missed calls. I didn't know then that everything we'd built was about to crumble, and that Grandpa's silence was only the beginning of the storm. The fight started over something small, at least. That's what it looked like. A bill, a decision about the company, maybe even pride. But pride has a way of burning everything around it. Dad was standing in the living room, tie loose, his hand gripping a glass of whiskey like it was armor. Mom hovered by the doorway, pale and tense. Grandpa sat in his usual chair, that old oak one with the worn armrests, quiet but unyielding. "This isn't your house anymore," Dad snapped. "You retired. You wanted peace. So let me run things my way." Grandpa's voice was steady. "You can run the business, Mark, but don't forget who built the foundation you're standing on." That's when Dad exploded. "You've been running my life since I was born. Listen to me or get out." Mom flinched. I stood frozen at the hallway, heart pounding. Grandpa rose slowly, straightened his jacket, and said only one thing: "You'll regret the way you spoke tonight." Then he left, no shouting, no slamming doors. Just quiet footsteps fading down the porch. And in that silence, all I could hear was my mother's trembling breath, and my own guilt for not saying a word. The morning after Grandpa left felt colder, even though the sun was out. The house was quiet in a way that didn't feel peaceful, it felt abandoned. Dad sat at the kitchen counter with the newspaper, pretending to read. Mom moved slowly, rinsing dishes that were already clean. I watched her hands shake as she stacked plates, her wedding ring glinting under the light. No one mentioned Grandpa. Not at breakfast, not at lunch. The silence was their truce. Around noon, I couldn't take it anymore. "I'm going to check on Grandpa," I said, grabbing my keys. Dad didn't even look up. "He's fine. Let him cool off." "Cool off? You kicked him out." He lowered the paper and glared. "Don't take that tone with me, Claire." He chose to leave. "No, you pushed him out," I muttered, already heading for the door. The drive to his lake cabin was an hour north through winding pine roads. Grandpa used to take me there every summer when Mom and Dad were too busy fighting about money. He called it his quiet place, though it was always full of music and sawdust and the smell of coffee. When I arrived, the front porch steps creaked like they missed him too. The door was unlocked odd for Grandpa. Inside, everything was in order. His fishing gear lined up, his flannel jacket on the hook, the kettle still on the stove, cold. There was a note on the table, written on the back of an old envelope. "Don't worry about me, kiddo. Take care of your mom." But something about it was wrong. The handwriting was shakier, uneven. I knew Grandpa's penmanship neat, steady, like a draftsman. This wasn't it. I called his cell, straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same result. Outside, the lake was still, reflecting the gray sky. For the first time, it scared me how quiet it was. When I got home, Dad's car wasn't in the driveway. Mom was sitting alone at the dining table, hands clasped tightly like she was praying. "Did you find him?" she asked. "No, but I found this." I placed the note in front of her. Her eyes darted over the words, then she exhaled shakily. "Claire, please, don't show your father this." "Why not?" "'Cause he wrote it." My stomach turned. "What?" Her eyes filled with tears. "He told me Grandpa left it behind, but I saw him writing something that night after your grandpa left. I didn't think he'd actually—" I stepped back, shaking my head. "So he forged a goodbye note? Why?" Mom's voice cracked. "To make it easier for himself, I think. Or maybe to convince me he was right." I looked around the house, the same walls Grandpa painted, the floors he laid by hand, and all I could think was how easily someone could erase a man with a few lies and a forged signature. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time the wind brushed the windows, I heard Grandpa's voice again, quiet but certain. You'll regret the way you spoke tonight. By the third morning, the silence had become unbearable. Dad went to work early, slamming the door like he wanted to prove he was still in control of something. Mom stayed in her robe until noon, staring at the TV without really watching. I needed air. I wandered out to the workshop behind the house, Grandpa's old sanctuary. He used to say it was where wood learned to listen. The smell of cedar still lingered. Dust floated in thin light from the small window, landing on stacks of blueprints and broken tools. I sat on his stool, running my fingers over the grooves carved into the workbench initials, dates, tiny notes in his handwriting. That's when I saw it. A small lockbox tucked behind a shelf of paint cans, the same one he used to keep important things. It wasn't locked. Inside were papers sealed in manila folders, tax forms, deeds, insurance statements, and on top of them, a letter addressed to me. Claire, if you're reading this, it means I've stepped away for a while. Don't worry, I'm doing what's right. Keep this safe, and don't let your father touch it. Grandpa. My hands trembled as I opened the next folder. It was his will, but not the one Dad had waved around years ago during a family dinner when Grandpa retired. This one was different. It listed ownership of the house, the family company, and even the lake cabin, and named me as the primary heir. Not Dad, not Mom, me. I felt dizzy. Why would Grandpa do that? I brought the papers inside and laid them on the dining table. Mom was there, folding laundry, her expression tired. Mom, I said quietly, you should see this. She read the first page and froze. Her lips parted but no words came. Did you know? I asked. She shook her head slowly. He must have updated it after your grandmother died. I didn't think he'd put your name on it. So Dad doesn't own the house. She hesitated. Claire, it's complicated. No, it's not. I pointed to the bold line at the bottom. It's his signature, and he left it to me. Mom sank into a chair, covering her face. You can't tell your father. Why not? Because he already knows. My heart stopped. What do you mean? She looked up, eyes rimmed with red. He found the new will months ago. He was furious. He went to the lawyer to contest it, but Walter withdrew everything from joint accounts before he could. That's why he snapped that night. I stared at her in disbelief. You mean Grandpa left because Dad was trying to take everything from him? Her silence was answer enough. I folded the will carefully and tucked it back into the envelope. I didn't know what scared me more, what Dad had already done, or what he might do when he realized I knew. That night, when he came home, I hid the papers under the floorboard of my closet. If Grandpa trusted me to protect them, I wasn't going to fail him. Dad came home late that night, his tie undone, the smell of whiskey thick around him. The living room lights were off except for the flicker of the TV. Mom had fallen asleep on the couch again. I sat at the dining table, pretending to study but really staring at the will tucked beneath my notebook. My pulse thudded in my ears. When he saw me, he smirked. Still up? You should get some sleep. Big day tomorrow. For you or for me? I asked. His smirk faded. What's that supposed to mean? I went to Grandpa's workshop. That stopped him cold. His voice dropped. You had no right? You had no right to forge a letter and throw him out of his own house, I shot back. Mom stirred on the couch, half awake. Please, not tonight. But the words were already spilling out of me. I know about the will, Dad. I know you tried to change it. For a moment I thought he might actually laugh, and then he did. Low and bitter. Of course you found it. That old man loved to play his little games. They weren't games, I said. He trusted you. Trusted me? He slammed his glass down so hard that the liquid splashed across the counter. He treated me like a damn employee. Every decision, every cent, his approval first. You wouldn't even have a business without him. And I'm the one who kept it alive, he barked, while he sat there in that chair acting like God. Mom sat up, trembling. Mark, please stop. Stay out of this, Linda. His voice snapped like a whip. Something inside me snapped too. He built everything you have, and you threw him out because he wouldn't hand it over fast enough. He turned toward me, eyes glassy and hard. You think you understand how the world works, Claire? You've lived in comfort because I made sure of it. Don't stand there and judge me. I'm not judging you. I'm watching you destroy everything. The room went silent except for the ticking of the wall clock. For a moment, I thought I saw something like regret flicker across his face, but it was gone as fast as it came. "Give me the papers," he said quietly. "What papers?" "You know what I mean." I met his gaze. "No." He took a step forward, slow and deliberate. "Don't test me." Mom jumped between us. "Mark, stop, please." He froze, breathing hard, then turned away, hands pressed to his temples. "You have no idea what's at stake," he muttered. "The company's in trouble. Without that house as collateral, we lose everything." The words hit me like ice water. So that's what this was really about. "It's not about family to you," I said softly. "It's about money." He looked at me, eyes rimmed red. "It's all the same thing." I grabbed my bag and backed toward the door. Not anymore. Outside, the wind had picked up, rustling the trees like whispers. I sat in my car for a long time, staring at the dark windows of our house, the house Grandpa built, the house Dad was willing to destroy for pride. And for the first time, I felt something stronger than fear, resolve. The next morning, the house was heavy with silence again. I could hear the low hum of the refrigerator, the creak of pipes in the walls, every small sound too loud in the emptiness. Dad had already left for the office before sunrise. Mom sat at the kitchen table, staring into a cup of coffee gone cold. I couldn't stop replaying the night before, the anger in his voice, the way he said it's all the same thing. I wanted to believe there was still something human left in him, something that wasn't driven by pride or fear. At noon, I was upstairs sorting through a box of Grandpa's old photos when my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. "Hello? Claire." My heart stopped. "Grandpa?" There was a pause, then his warm, steady voice filled my ear. "It's me, kiddo." I stood up, clutching the phone tighter. "Where are you? Everyone's been worried sick." "I'm safe. Don't tell your father I called." "What's going on? Please just tell me where you are." He sighed softly. "Sometimes the best way to win a battle is to step back and let the enemy reveal himself." "Grandpa, what are you talking about?" "You'll understand soon," he said. "Give it 3 days. Everything will make sense." 3 days? What happens in 3 days? But the line went dead. I called back once, twice, 5 times. Straight to voicemail. Downstairs, I could hear Mom pacing, talking to someone on the phone in a low voice. I caught a few words. Lawyer, title deed, transfer. When she saw me, she quickly ended the call. "Who were you talking to?" I asked. "No one," she said too quickly. "Mom, please stop lying." Her eyes filled with tears. "You don't understand, Claire. Your father's losing everything. He's desperate. That doesn't excuse what he's done." She looked away, whispering, "I know." That night, I couldn't sleep. Grandpa's words echoed in my head 3 days. By the second day, things at home got stranger. Dad came home late again, pacing, muttering into his phone. I heard fragments from the hallway, accounts frozen, legal notice. He can't do that. Every conversation ended with him slamming something. Mom barely spoke. She moved around him like a ghost, doing everything she could to keep the peace that no longer existed. On the third morning, I woke up to sunlight spilling through my curtains and the faint vibration of my phone. One missed call, then another, then 10 more. Unknown number, then Dad's name flashing again and again. By the time I picked up, my hands were shaking. "Claire, where's your mother?" His voice was frantic. "Find her, now." "What's happening?" But he'd already hung up. I ran downstairs. The front door was wide open. Mom's car was gone. And on the dining table lay a single envelope with my name written in Grandpa's handwriting. I tore it open. "Don't be afraid of the truth, kiddo. It's the only thing that'll keep you free. W." Outside, the wind rattled the windows, and for the first time, I felt the storm coming. 3 days. Grandpa had said 3 days. And whatever he'd been planning, it had just begun. 3 days later, everything erupted. I woke up to shouting downstairs. Not the sharp, controlled kind I'd grown used to, but something wilder. Desperate. I ran down barefoot, my pulse pounding. Dad was in the living room, phone clutched in one hand, a stack of papers scattered across the coffee table. Mom stood near the stairs, pale and trembling. "What's going on?" I asked. Dad slammed the phone down, his face flushed red. "He did it. That old man finally lost his damn mind. What are you talking about? He grabbed a document from the pile and threw it onto the table. The house, the business, the accounts. They're gone. All of it. I picked up the paper. Across the top, the header read, Notice of Ownership Transfer Property Returned to Walter Hayes Family Trust. I blinked, struggling to make sense of it. Wait, Grandpa. He sold it, Dad barked. He sold everything to a trust under his name last week. Every cent is frozen. The bank just called. I can't even pay the damn mortgage. Mom covered her mouth, her voice barely audible. He must have planned this before he left. Dad spun toward her, eyes blazing. And you knew, didn't you? What? No. Don't lie to me, Linda. She backed away as he advanced, his voice breaking with anger. You've been talking to him, haven't you? You and your sainted father, plotting behind my back. I stepped between them. Stop it. This isn't her fault. He turned on me like a cornered animal. You knew too, didn't you? You always took his side. Because he was right, I shouted back. You treated him like he was nothing, and he took back what was his. His breath came heavy. You think you understand any of this? You're just a kid. I'm not a kid. I'm the person Grandpa trusted when he couldn't trust his own son. That made him freeze. His jaw tightened. You sound just like him, he hissed. Arrogant. Self-righteous. Always judging. Judging. I didn't back down. He built everything you have, Dad, and you destroyed it with greed. He lunged toward me, stopping just short, his voice shaking. You don't know what it's like to be second to your own father, to work your whole life under his shadow. You chose that shadow, I said. You could have stood beside him. Instead, you tried to replace him. The phone rang again once, twice, then over and over. The sound sliced through the tension like sirens. Dad snatched it up, barked, What? Then his expression shifted. His voice dropped to a whisper. What do you mean the investors pulled out? What lawsuit? His hands began to shake. No, he can't, he wouldn't. He ended the call, staring blankly at the floor. He froze my accounts, he muttered. All of them, even the company funds. Mom whispered. Mark. But he wasn't listening. His phone buzzed again. More calls. He ignored them. Then another. I watched the screen light up over and over until the display was just a blur of notifications. Finally, he screamed and hurled the phone against the wall. It shattered, pieces scattering across the hardwood floor. He sank to his knees, gripping his head. He ruined me, he whispered. Your grandfather ruined me. Mom knelt beside him, tears streaming down her face. He didn't ruin you, Mark. You did this. Her voice was soft but steady, stronger than I'd ever heard it. He looked at her, disbelief etched into his features. You're taking her side now? I'm taking the side of what's right, she said. I should have said something that night. I should have stopped you. He stared at her like he didn't recognize her. Then his eyes turned toward me. You think this is justice? You think he's the hero? He's vindictive, Claire. He's destroying his own son. I took a breath, forcing the words out evenly. No, he's saving his granddaughter. The silence that followed was deafening. Only the faint buzz of the broken phone filled the room. Then Dad's laptop pinged an incoming email. He stood shakily and opened it. The screen glowed blue across his face. His mouth fell open. It was a message from Grandpa's lawyer. Mr. Hayes, per your father's final directive, the Walter Hayes Company will be restructured under new management, effective immediately. Your employment contract has been terminated. Please vacate the company premises within 24 hours. Dad let out a strangled noise, half laugh, half sob. He fired me from my own company, Mom whispered. It was never yours. He looked at both of us then, something broken, something lost. You'll regret this, he said quietly. Both of you. When he stormed out, slamming the door behind him, the sound echoed through the walls, leaving only stillness in its wake. Mom and I stood there for a long time. She finally looked at me and said, He needed to lose everything to see what he's become. I didn't answer. I just walked to the window. Outside, the wind had picked up again, carrying faint thunder in the distance. My phone buzzed on the table. And 101 missed calls, all from Dad. But I didn't pick up. For the first time in my life, I let the storm rage without running to stop it. 2 days after the storm, the house felt hollow, too big, too quiet. Dad hadn't come home. His car was gone, his office locked, his phone still shattered in the trash bin. I thought I'd feel relief, but what I felt was something different: grief for the man he could have been. That afternoon, Mom got a call from an unfamiliar number. Her face went pale. "It's your grandfather," she whispered. We met him the next morning at a small cafe downtown, the kind that smelled like old wood and burnt espresso. When I walked in, Grandpa was sitting by the window, wearing the same worn brown coat he'd had for 20 years. He looked older but lighter somehow, like a man who had finally put down a burden. "Hey, kiddo," he said, smiling faintly. "You look like you haven't slept in a week." I sat across from him. "You could have told me what you were planning." He stirred his coffee. "Would you have let me?" "No," I admitted. "That's why I didn't." He leaned back, eyes gentle. Mark had to face the truth on his own. I wasn't going to argue with him anymore. I wanted him to see what power costs when it comes before love. Mom joined us quietly, her eyes already wet. "Walter," she said softly, "you broke him." Grandpa sighed. "I didn't break him. I just stopped protecting him from the consequences." I swallowed hard. "He's not coming home." "I know," Grandpa said. "But you and your mother are. The house, the business they're in, both your names now. You'll be fine." Mom covered her face with her hands. "I should have spoken that night. I let him humiliate you." He reached across the table and squeezed her wrist. "Silence can be cruel, Linda, but it can also be forgiven." I stared at him. "What are you going to do now?" He smiled faintly. "Enjoy my retirement for real this time. Fix the cabin roof, maybe plant some tomatoes. I've done my fighting." For a moment, none of us spoke. The hum of the cafe, the clinking of cups, the soft chatter, it all blurred into something calm. As we stood to leave, Grandpa touched my shoulder. "You did good, Claire. You stood up when everyone else was quiet. Never lose that." When we walked outside, the air was cool and bright. Mom held my arm tightly as we crossed the street. "He's changed," she said. "No," I said quietly. "He just stopped hiding." Later that evening, Dad's lawyer called. "Mark's left town," he told Mom. "He withdrew what little was left from his personal account. Said he needed time." I hung up before hearing the rest. Standing on the porch that night, I looked out over the yard, the same one Grandpa and I planted when I was little. The wind rustled through the trees, and for the first time in months, it didn't sound like anger. It sounded like peace. Some truths destroy you before they save you. Ours had finally done both. Spring came early that year. The snow melted faster than usual, and for the first time in months, the house felt alive again. Sunlight spilled across the kitchen floor where dust used to settle. The air didn't feel heavy anymore, it felt like breathing after being underwater too long. Mom started painting again. She used to love it before everything fell apart. Sometimes I'd find her on the porch with a cup of tea and a brush in her hand, humming softly while she worked. She said it helped her fill the silence with color. Grandpa moved back into his cabin by the lake. I visited every weekend. We fixed the old dock, sanded the railings, and built a small greenhouse out back. He called it our project, a place to grow things worth keeping. One afternoon, as I helped him plant tomato seeds, he said, "Funny thing about soil, Claire. It remembers every storm, every root it's ever held. But somehow it still knows how to start over." I smiled. "I think people are like that too." He nodded. "The good ones are." Back at home, the nights were peaceful again. No shouting, no slam doors, just quiet conversations over dinner. Laughter that didn't feel forced. Mom still kept Dad's photo on the shelf. Not as a reminder of pain, but as proof that people can change, or at least, that we can survive them when they don't. A month later, Grandpa invited us both to dinner at the cabin. The lake shimmered under the evening sun, golden and calm. He poured 3 glasses of lemonade and raised his cup. "To family," he said. "The kind that learns." We clinked glasses. As the sun dipped behind the trees, I walked down to the dock alone. The water was still, reflecting the pink sky, and I thought about everything we'd lost and everything we'd rebuilt. Sometimes, I could still hear Dad's voice in my head, angry, echoing, "Listen to me, or get out." But it didn't hurt anymore. Now, when I think of that line, I think of Grandpa, the way he chose to walk away. Not out of defeat, but out of dignity. I sat at the edge of the dock, toes brushing the water, and whispered to the quiet lake, "I'm listening, Grandpa. I get it now." And for the first time in a long time, the silence felt like love.